Hey y'all, happy Thursday. Um, I'm just gonna hop right into today's topic. Hey, what's up? What's up? Yep, pouring water. I guess his microphone picks up everything. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna hop right into today's topic. Why aren't the black men who are protecting black women being celebrated? So the reason I wanted to bring this up is because I constantly hear this talked about. There's this question of like, why aren't black men protecting black women, or this complaint that black men are oftentimes not protecting black women. I can't necessarily say I know where that is coming from. I haven't really seen data or actual evidence to suggest that. I just know it's a common talking point out there. I'll say in my life, I certain that hasn't been my experience. Like I've had good experiences with black men. I've had black men who've looked out for me. So, as a black woman, I can't say that that's my experience, but I know that that is a common talking point. It's a common complaint. Black women, by and large, saying black men are not protecting us, and we hear all the time. And we hear all the time stories, being promoted. Many of you guys, I'm sure, are familiar with this whole situation with Brother Polite and what recently happened, or I guess allegations of him basically raping a 14-year-old girl, which is very disturbing. I hope this is not true, and I hope that this is not the case. But time will tell. I don't like to jump to conclusions prematurely, because I do know generally black men are presumed guilty until proven otherwise. So I don't want to jump to any conclusions before we actually know and have all of the data. But then, that's a common talking point going on right now. And then, of course, we're going to hear yet again another situation, and black men is protecting a young black girl, et cetera, et cetera. Here is a challenge with this. Here's a challenge with it. Obviously, there are black men who are abusive. I'm not going to sit here and act like that doesn't exist. There are also white men who are abusive. There are Asian women or Asian men who are abusive. There is abuse across all cultures. I mean, for crying out loud, if abuse, or if, wasn't an issue, or if women being unhappy wasn't an issue, feminism would not have started. White women would have not stood up and say, hey, we don't like the way we're being treated by our white men. Feminism would not have happened. So obviously we know, based upon that fact alone, that other cultures also experience abuse. They also experience um bad interactions between men and women. That is not specific to black culture. That's not specific to black people. That happens all across the board. I think one of the issues, or one of the challenges that I oftentimes see, is this fact that so often, not only are black men demonized, in black culture, black men are demonized, but oftentimes other men outside of other cultures are celebrated. They're seen as, less volatile. They're seen as maybe safer. They're seen as maybe not having as many issues, and I think that can be incredibly, incredibly damaging. So, prime example, right? We, again, going back to the Brother Polite situation, where everybody is, up in arms, or I'm seeing all kind of stuff about this on YouTube. I'm seeing a different women, female YouTubers going off, have already assumed that he's guilty. And like I said, granted, this is a disgusting situation. But what we didn't ever really hear about was Chad Wheeler. No one ever heard about Chad Wheeler. No one ever really brought that up. The dude who basically almost killed his almost killed his girlfriend. Actually, no, I'm gonna pull up that article. Let me review, because I just seen one recently where she said that she basically has injuries that are going to last her entire life. Let me actually see if I can pull up this article, because I thought it was interesting. No one talked about that. I didn't ever really hear, and here's a NFL player that was dating a black girl and basically tried to kill her. Legitimately tried to kill her. Nobody talked about that. White guy. I'm actually see if I'm gonna bring up that article. If you guys are now, also, if you are on, thank you for those of you who have joined. Please get the likes up. Please tag anybody on this who may find this interesting, because not only are we gonna look at some stories where black women were abused and unprotected from guys outside of their race, we're actually going to look at stories where black men went to protect black women, that I never heard about. I'm just actually going to see if I can pull up the story. Let me see. Here it is. Um, Okay, that's the Chad Wheeler right there. Okay, so this one I'm gonna just read it real quick. It's gonna come up. It says Chad Wheeler's ex describes assault while she appeared at former Seahawks arrangement. Okay. So said Aaliyah Taylor, the 27-year-old woman who former Seahawk Chad Wheeler stands accused of assaulting in Kent last month, said in CBS This Morning interview Wednesday morning, she will have to deal with some of her injuries for the rest of her life. She says, I still have to regularly get my concussion checked, Taylor said in the interview. I have bolts and a steel plate I'm going to have forever in my arm. I'm going to have to deal with this the rest of my life. Wheeler, a backup offensive tackle who has been waived by the Seahawks, was later charged with first-degree assault, domestic violence, a Class A felony. Wheeler was also charged with unlawful imprisonment, domestic violence, and resisting arrest. Wheeler pleaded not guilty to all three charges earlier this month. So, again, just a one horrible situation where a Black woman is literally beat. I mean, he actually tried to kill her. I mean, certain reports suggest they actually tried to kill her. She was beat. She was taken advantage of from someone outside of the community, unfortunately. And I didn't really hear about it. I'm not gonna lie. See, and here's one thing that if I'm just being completely honest, one thing that I've noticed. Because I don't really position myself as like, hey, I'm on the side of the manosphere or I'm a part of the sisterhood. I'm one of those where it's like, look, I just want to be on the side of truth. If the man's wrong in the situation, he's wrong. If the woman is wrong in the situation, she's wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It's like I'm one of those. I'm not about trying to pick any sides just for the sake of it. I'm like, I want to be on the side of truth. I want to be on the side of what right. With that said, I don't know why. I personally feel like one of the reasons that I appreciate listening to different content creators within the manosphere is because some of them I feel like tend to actually try to take, I don't want to say more neutral, but they actually tend to look at both sides. For example, I'll look at O'Shea Duke Jackson. I love listening to his channel. I can appreciate most of his stuff because I feel like I've seen him go after the women. I've seen him go after the guys. It's pretty well balanced. Same with Red Supreme. I appreciate his channel. I may not agree with everything, but I've seen him go after females really hard, but I've also seen him go after guys where they're having issues. So it's like I feel like there's balance. For whatever reason, in the female space where I exist, I don't necessarily see as much balance. To me, it seems as if there's almost a narrative being pushed where women are being encouraged to date outside of the community, or being encouraged as if, okay, other men are out there protecting Black women, or other men are out there wanting to, are great options for Black women, but they're not showing the whole side that, hey, abuse happens in all relationships. You can experience abuse in a relationship with a Black man. You can experience abuse in a relationship with a white man. I mean, this happens all the time. There are tons and tons of stories. I saw like literally 4 or 5 today of just countless stories where it was, a white man abusing a black girl. One was a guy who he brought, I think it was like a 7-year-old girl from Africa and was using her as a sex slave. Another one was a guy who would given over, I think, 20 Kenyan women HIVs. Like I saw countless stories. So case in point, you're gonna find abuse across all nationalities. So I think as a black woman, you have to know that you can't just say like, oh, write off an entire people group or idolize another people group. People are people. You're gonna find, sin. You're going to find goodness. You're going to find the potential for goodness or potential for evil in any person and any nationality. So I think there are big problems when you are a person that is idolizing somebody, especially for the way they look. And unfortunately, I see that a lot. I see that a lot in the YouTube space. I don't even know why, but I think it's unhealthy. Anyways, for those of you who just hopped on, please get the likes up, tag anybody on there who you think may find this interesting. I wanted to talk a little bit about why Black men who do protect Black women don't get protected. This brings me to my point. So, again, doing research today, I actually came across another article that I had not seen. And there have been 3 recent instances that I've seen where Black men were attempting to protect Black women. Listen, they were attempting to protect Black women and they got hurt in the process. 3 situations I've seen within like the last month or so where Black men were attempting to protect Black women and got hurt in the process. Why I didn't hear about this, I literally have no idea. But to me, this completely exposes the fallacy of the narrative that says that Black men are protecting Black women. I argue that that it is happening within relationships, within families, within things like that, but nobody's talking about it. Why is that? I don't know. I can only speculate. Is it because certain people are trying to push a narrative? I don't know. Is it because just people don't care, or because you get better views or better likes when you're talking about something negative? I don't know. But what is actually happening is that there are men out there. There are men out there who care about their family. You find that across all nationalities, and Black men are not excluded from that. There are plenty of stories of Black men who have protected Black women. I'm going to highlight 3 today so that we can actually address this lie that is just not true. So let me pull up. This is the first one that I saw. Let me remove this one. Also, for those of you guys who have hopped on, thank you. First of all, please like if you like it. Tag anyone on who you think might find this interesting, or share it. Also, if you want to support this channel, you can find me on Cash App or Venmo, Shay Sharday. Let me pull this up real quick. So here is the first story. Okay, I saw this actually off of People magazine. It says, Michigan dad suffers severe burns saving twin daughters from fire. Michigan dad suffers severe burns saving twin daughters from fire. He said, I had to get my babies out first. This was a Black man. Let's just start there. This is a Black man who suffered injuries trying to save his 2 beautiful brown-skinned daughters. So let's get right into it. So it says, Ryan Lucas ran into a burning house to rescue his 18-month-old twin daughters, Milan and Malaysia, sustaining serious burns to his face, eyes, neck, and arms. A Michigan man rescued his baby daughters from a house fire earlier this month, suffering severe burns in the process. On Friday, July 16, 23-year-old Ray Lucas of East Point, Michigan, came home after running on errand with girlfriend Cheyenne Brown, with whom he shares 18-month-old twin daughters, Malaysia and Milan. When the couple returned, they found their house on fire, according to GoFundMe page created for the family. The heroic father then ran into the burning home without hesitation to retrieve the baby girls from the basement. The house was engulfed in smoke. I saw my mom and my niece were standing at the door and they were frantic, Lucas told WJBK. I just knew I had to get my babies out. That's what went through my mind. You really couldn't see your hand in front of your face. I really only found my babies due to my memory, just knowing where they were and knowing how to get to them. According to the fundraiser page, the father was severely burned in the electrical fire and sustained 2nd and 3rd degree burns to his face, eyes, neck, arms, and other parts of his body, in addition to smoke inhalation. Now, Lucas is worried that he will not be able to return to work due to the extent of his injuries. The crowdfunding description also explained that their house was completely destroyed and the family lost absolutely everything in the fire. As of Monday morning, over $112,000 has been raised, smashing the $40,000 goal. Reflecting on the extent of his injuries, the dad told WJBK that he was temporarily blind for 3 days and they said it was a miracle I could see. I've got burn on my arms, but for the most part, everybody is still here, he said. So that is a young black father who went to go save his daughters from a fire. His 2 young twin daughters. There's electrical fire going on, and he sustained 2nd and 3rd degree burns going and trying to protect them from a fire, trying to protect them from death. I think that is a beautiful story. I think that is very heroic. I'm like, hats off to that father. By the way, why didn't I hear about this? Did any of y'all hear about this? Let me know. Maybe I'm tripping. Maybe I'm late to the game. I didn't hear about this story anywhere. I mean, I think this is a beautiful story of a father literally risking his life to save his 2 young, really in that place, helpless daughters. I mean, they were young girls. They couldn't have done anything. But that was a heroic act. I didn't hear about it. I didn't hear about it amongst anywhere. And like I said, this is a black man with 2 black daughters who was going and doing that, and no one talked about it. So don't ever let anybody tell you that this doesn't happen. Also, don't let anybody just demonize a particular group of people. Here is a prime example of a black man who put his life on the line to to save his family. And it literally said in the article, it said his grandmother and auntie were outside frantic. They weren't trying to go into that fire. They were literally waiting outside frantic. Now, why did that happen? I have no idea. Obviously, the auntie and the mom, they were watching the kids, and so I'm not totally sure how they ended up outside. But either way, he went inside. The women outside, they were outside chilling. They were outside like, we don't know what to do. They weren't trying to go in the fire. So he risked his life to do it. I think that's a beautiful, heroic story. Thank you, Percy, for the $10 super chat. It says, I will protect women, but I don't break up fights because before the end of the night, she's gonna be back in his arms. I'm not even mad at it. I am not mad at it. I appreciate you for the super chat. Also, for those of you who want, please click the like up, tag anybody on here if you think might find this interesting. We are talking about Black men who do protect Black women and why they don't get no love. Why don't nobody ever hear about them? Because I was actually surprised. I was surprised to hear about some of the stories where Black men put their life on the line to protect Black women and nobody heard about it. I was also a little bit surprised to hear about some of the stories where Black women were harmed by non-Black men and also didn't hear about it. So I'm like, just again, I'm not really here to try to demonize anybody or worship another person. I don't believe in that because I'm like, people have the capacity for good and evil. But I do think it is damaging as a Black woman if you are told, oh, all these men are safe, oh, all these men are evil, and you're not. That's, first of all, that's just dumb because, like I said, human nature is human nature. It don't matter what color your skin is. So that's just, I think, a dumb, illogical statement, period. Secondly, it's incredibly damaging for Black women if you are told, oh, this particular race of men is always safe, because when that happens, there's been countless situations of Black women coming out and saying, oh, hey, I was hurt here, or they've been in an interracial relationship, or they've been in a relationship with a Black man, or I mean, with a white man, and they're like, I was abused, I was beat. I just seen a girl today on Twitter, literally in tears, saying this white guy from fraternity, he used me, he abused me, and I saw him, and he didn't want to look me in the eye. And she's like, man, I just wish I didn't hate the way I look. I wish I didn't hate myself. Like, it was a really sad, it was a really sad video. But case in point, that's just bad. That's just illogical. Men are men. There's good men, there's bad men. But don't ever let anybody tell you that there's any particular group of men that is bad, or there's any particular group of men that is better than the other, because that's just bad logic. Like I said, people are people. They have the capacity for good and evil. Percy, thank you. I appreciate you. Also, for those of you guys who have just hopped on, please tag anybody on. Feel free to send me your super chats. Also, you can find me on Venmo and Cash App, Shay Sade. We are talking about Black men who actually do protect Black women and why they don't get any love, why they don't get any recognition. So we just highlighted a story right here. We just highlighted the story where a young Michigan father, he put his life on the line to save his two beautiful young twin girls. Look, I mean, they're just so cute. These helpless little girls. Situation happened where I think he went to the store with his girlfriend or his wife, and evidently his grandmother or his aunt or whatever were looking after the kids, from what I understand it. He comes back, the house is on fire. His grandmother and aunt are standing outside of the house. They're frantic. But the young girls, they're inside of the house. The young girls are inside of the house in the basement. And so he goes in trying to save those girls. He's like, look, I just knew where they were at. He wasn't even really thinking. He's like, I just got to get my babies out of there. He gets his babies out of the fire, but sustains second and third degree burns in the process. But they're safe. The babies are safe. He obviously was injured in the pursuit, but he was able to protect those girls. I'm like, what a beautiful story. Why didn't I hear about this? And also, where were the firefighters, by the way? But I mean, I don't know. Maybe they were late to the game. Case in point, he put his life on the line. A Black man put his life on the line to save two beautiful Black girls, and here they are, able to grow, able to live life because he was willing to risk his life. Beautiful story. Don't ever let anybody tell you that Black men don't protect their women or their family, because they do. Men do, generally speaking. Like, that's just, it's the instinct of a man. So here's another story that I want to look at, where a Black man, again, goes in trying to protect daughters, but unfortunately ends up harmed in the process. Some of you guys may have already heard of this. Also, let me guys know, have you guys heard of these stories? Have you guys heard stories of where, Black men are protecting their children or their family or the girl, whatever it may be, Have you heard stories of that being promoted? Are you hearing that stuff? Because I certainly am not, but I'd like to. I like hearing positive stories. There's enough negative stories out there. So it'd be nice to hear some positive things. Let me guys know what you think. Put it in the comments. Um, Also, if you like this channel, if you want to see more positive things or just more constructive conversations, hit the Cash App. You can find me on Cash App or Venmo, Shay Sade. I appreciate all of you guys. So now we're going to move on to the next. We're going to move on to the next article that I saw that I actually thought was pretty interesting. It's actually sad. Some of you guys may have heard of this already. It is the Twerking Twins, right? This happened back in July. It says father of twerking twins fatally shot during argument with daughters. So this is the one that says the father of the twin sisters, who are internet famous for their twerking videos, was shot dead by a man during an argument with his daughters. The incident led to the death of an elderly man in what police in Mobile, Alabama say was a case of mistaken identity. It says in all, 2 men are dead and a woman is in critical condition. Let me see. Okay, it says police said they want to talk to D'Angelo Demetrius Mero, 28, about the chain of events that began on William Street and ended at Pathways apartment on Florida Street. It says Hodge said the first shootings occurred at about 10:40 p.m. With an argument that a man named James Walter was having with his two daughters who live at the address. As the shouting escalated, another man police would not identify tried to intervene. That's when the scene turned deadly. So from what I understand, because I think I've heard multiple sources about this, from what I understand, basically, here is a father who was just like, look, his daughters are known, they're twerking twins. They're known for twerking. How they got into that position, how, what the relationship is about, I don't fully know. I can speculate. But from what I understand about the story, he basically was like, look, you don't need to be twerking. You don't need to be thoughting it up anymore. This is inappropriate. They got into a dispute. Emotions got high, and he was shot in the process. So yet again, here is a black man, unfortunately, who was, now it could have been too late. Like I said, these women were, they're older, they're adults, and so they've made their decisions. But nevertheless, they decided that they wanted to be twerking it up. They wanted to be thoughting it up. He goes, tries to protect them, and is shot and dead. So here is a prime example of a black man who wanted to protect black women, but got harmed and actually killed in the process. This is a very disturbing story. I certainly don't recommend this, but it does happen. It does happen. Now, again, why do I bring this up? Because yet again, this is one of probably many stories that we don't know about where men within the black community are going out trying to protect their daughters, trying to protect their family, trying to protect the ones that they love, and they get wounded in the process. Why is that important? Because don't ever let anybody tell you that black men don't protect black women, that all black men out there don't protect black women. Obviously, there are abusers. Obviously, there are black men who abuse. Like, there are all men who abuse. Obviously, there are men who don't protect women. That goes across all nationalities. But don't let anybody ever tell you that there is a group of men that exist, or a group of people that exist, who are just completely and totally just illiterate and don't do good things. Because I think that's dumb. And here is a second example of a black man who actually does go and try to protect his daughters. He gets killed in the process, and I don't hear anyone talking about it. I don't hear anyone saying, okay, look, he was trying to be a good dad. I don't hear anybody saying, okay, man, that's sad. Let's, at least congratulate his effort, or nothing. Like, I didn't really hear about this. But again, what I will hear about is Brother Polite and that whole situation where there's allegations of him abusing a girl. Again, I certainly do not recommend that. I think that's bad, and I think it's horrible. And I hope that it's just all wrong and it's all made up. I hope it's not real. But if it is real, then yeah, he should be implicated, and the adults in that situation should be implicated. But I hear all about that, but I don't hear about the situations where men are trying to do good. And I find that disturbing, and I think that's not fair. I think there needs to be balance. So, yet again, another. This is going to be the last story, and then I'll probably sign off. Also, for those of you who are on, thank you. Please get the likes up. Tag anybody on who you think may find this interesting. We are talking about the black men who do protect black women or do protect women in their community, and why we're not hearing about it. What that's about. Why is it happening? Let me know what you guys think. I'd like to hear from you. Why aren't we hearing more stories like this? Why aren't we hearing positive stories where men are actually trying to, um, men are actually trying, they are trying to, protect their women. They are trying to protect their families. Why don't we hear stories like this? I would like to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts. I'm going to pull up just one other story here. Let's see. Okay, let's see. So I hear some comments. Those twins weren't worth protecting. They are disturbing. I haven't really looked at their videos. That's a tough one. I don't really know the entire situation, but it's like, it's safe to assume that at that point they were probably too far gone. They were probably they've they're probably way past the point of return, if that makes any sense. So, um, it definitely could have been a wasted effort. It's just sad. It's sad that it ended up being fatal. It says, okay, my brother is a single father of three who asked his wife to leave. Hmm. Okay, so here is this. Let me see. This one came up. Is this the one? No. Oops. Okay, I'm gonna try this one more again. There's another one. There's another story I wanted to highlight. I thought that was actually really really interesting. If I can bring it up. Um, okay, so here it is. Okay, it says homeowner killed after confronting teen who climbed through upstairs window to see daughter. So again, this is now a third case or a third situation I see of a black man going in to protect his black daughter, and he gets harmed in the process. There it is. No, that's not it. Okay, it says police said a father was shot and killed after he confronted a teenager who snuck into his home to see his daughter Sunday morning. It says Police Chief David McDavid said the shooting happened around 8 a.m. at a house on Hayfield Drive. Police initially described the incident as a reported break in, but said Monday the teenage suspect was there to see an underage girl. Desmond Hamilton, 34, the girl's father and homeowner, died from multiple gunshot wounds, according to the coroner's office. The suspect, identified by police as 17-year-old Nicholas McWhorter, was also wounded in the encounter and taken to a hospital. McDavid said officers believe the teen climbed a ladder and entered the home through a second-story window. A confrontation unfolded after Hamilton found McWhorter in his home. The two shot one another during the encounter, according to police. McDavid said Monday the suspect was at the home to see the victim's 14-year-old daughter. Both were armed, police said, and it's still unclear who fired the first shot. The teen will be booked on charges of second-degree murder, illegal use of a weapon, and illegal possession of a stolen firearm. So here's a situation. Here's a situation where a black father sees someone, breaking and entering into his home. He sees an intruder go into his young underage daughter's, room, and naturally he's upset. Naturally, he's in protection mode. What happens? He gets killed in the process. He gets killed in the process of trying to protect his daughter. Thank you, Gallo, for the super chat. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. For those of you who have just hopped on, we are actually talking about black men who do protect black women, and we don't even hear about it. Why is that? I'd really like to hear from you guys. Why do you think we're not hearing these stories? Why are we not hearing these positive stories where there are men out there who are trying to be constructive and trying to build the community and trying to do good things, or just trying to be good dads or trying to be good fathers? Why aren't we hearing that? There's a whole lot of emphasis and there's a whole lot of focus on what isn't being done. And there's a whole lot of focus on those who are doing bad things. But why isn't there balance? I'd like to hear from you guys. Um, So yeah, so again, here is another situation. Basically, like I said, where a man goes to try to protect his daughter, and he gets shot and killed. And like I said, there's a lot of speculation. They're trying to figure out, okay, who shot who first. But at the end of the day, a underage kid. He was a kid, but either way, he breaks into a person's home. You know what I mean? With armed with a weapon, and goes and tries to see another man's daughter. Like, just totally and completely inappropriate. The kid gets shot, and then the father dies. So that's I don't I mean it I don't even know, I don't really know what else to say. I mean, it's really disturbing. Um I think there's, the story is still unfolding. There's still things that are still questionable, but basically what this is, I showed you three different stories where black men went in to protect black women and their family, and they were harmed in the process. The first story was, a young, I think, father from, it's in Missouri or Michigan, who had two young twin daughters. These were like baby girls. They were caught in a fire somehow. The women were standing outside in the house crying, and they're like, we didn't know what to do. He heroically goes into the burning home, sustained second and third degree burns, but get his daughters out the fire. So I'm like, incredibly heroic. Again, he got hurt in the process, but he was able to save his two young girls. And meanwhile, this is why the grandmother and the aunt were standing there in the fire, like, we don't know what to do. He's like, I don't care. I'm going into that fire to find my daughters. Beautiful story. Beautiful story. Never heard about it. Second story, again, was, a father the father with the two twerking daughters, who got in an argument with them, was saying, look, y'all need to stop thotting it up. Y'all need to stop. They didn't listen. Emotions get high. He gets shot in the process from some other dude. Second situation of a black man trying to protect his daughters, whether or not, now one could argue whether or not he was too late. One could argue whether or not he did it the wrong or right way. Either way, he tried and he got killed. Third situation, a dude breaks it, a armed teenager, whatever, breaks into a man's home to see an underage daughter. The father naturally is in protection mode. He goes and trying to investigate, figuring out who was in his house, who was there to see his daughter, unannounced, gets killed in the process. So these are three distinctive stories, three separate stories, where black men put their life on the line to save their black women, the black women they love, their black family members. And two of these men were killed in the process, two of them. So again, I asked the question, why is it that we are not hearing about these things? We certainly have heard about Brother Polite. We hear all the time that black men ain't this. We hear almost every other day that black men aren't protecting black women. And we see videos of men beating women. We see videos of young kids beating other young kids, which again further feeds this narrative that says black men aren't protecting women. I mean, I've seen, popular black male YouTubers or popular black male influencers come up and say, okay, men, you got to do better. But we don't see this. We don't see this being celebrated. And my thing is, okay, if there is such a problem within the black community, if there is such a problem, then we should be promoting these kinds of stories. We should be promoting the kind of stories where men did go and try to do the heroic act, where they did go and try to protect their women, where they did go and try to protect their family, and they got harmed in the process. We should be promoting that also, so that there could be balance, so that there could be an equal and honest discussion. But we don't hear that. I see some comments. Positivity doesn't fill chat rooms. Fair. It doesn't. Positivity, unfortunately, doesn't always sell. It doesn't sell. It said, I see some comments. I have shared similar stories, and many black women creators refuse to share on their platform. Yeah, actually made that. I mentioned that earlier, where I don't really fully understand. I do notice there's some popular content creators out there, or just from the female YouTube space in general. I do see a lot of talk of, the negative things that men do. And obviously that gets a lot of views, that gets a lot of likes, because there's many women out there who have had experiences with F-boys. And so they can resonate with the drama. So we see that all the time, but I don't necessarily always see the balance. I don't also see the stories where it's like, hey, well, here are examples of men who do things right. Here are example of maybe black couples or black families who are they're healthy. Here's an example of how to do it right. I usually just hear, okay, divest or just leave the community. But I'm like, I don't think that's always necessarily the best answer either. If you're, first of all, not teaching women how to have self-respect and not how to have actual good, like God-given self-love or self-esteem. Because if you're not teaching them that and you just tell them to divest, and they're just going to go and choose a bum from another community. And this is why we see a lot of situations of black men being or black women being abused from men outside of the community, but we also don't hear that being highlighted. We just usually only hear stories that are fitting a particular narrative. And my thing is, look, I'm not here to really even try to fit any particular narrative. It's like I want to be on the side of the truth. I'm not about trying to support the sisterhood. I'm not trying to be like, hey, I'm all pro into the manosphere. It's like, to me, it's the division to me is stupid. It's like I just want to be on the side of truth. And why not have an open conversation about what is actually happening? So what is actually happening is that we see men who are abusive within the black community. Yes. We see black women who are abusive within the black community. Yes. We also see situations where black men are going and trying to protect their women, are trying to protect their family, and it's not being highlighted. That is happening. And also what I don't ever really hear is like where are the statistics? Where are the actual stats to suggest that black men by and large have just completely stopped protecting the community? Like I guess I'd really like some sociological data to back that up, because I hear a lot of narrative, but I don't necessarily say that I can see facts to substantiate that point. Now, again, if you're dealing with like a nobody, or for a woman, and we put ourselves in an unsafe situation, well, yeah, you're gonna have bad results. But just going out there and just saying, oh, well, this bad thing happened, so therefore all men are like that. Again, that's bad. That's a bad narrative. That's a bad way to come to a conclusion. So I see, did blood actually do those things? The manosphere and divestors are miserable. Yeah. Like I said, I've listened to a few different people within the spaces, and there's things that I agree with, and there's things that I don't agree with. As far as polite, I personally have no way of knowing. I'm not one that likes to jump to conclusions. I don't like jumping to conclusions, because, especially without all the data, because I know, unfortunately, being black in America and black men in America in particular, especially when it comes to the court of law, they are usually considered guilty until proven innocent. It's supposed to be the other way. It's supposed to be that you are seen innocent until proven guilty, but it works. It works the other way around. It's usually black men are considered guilty until proven innocent. And so I tend to be a lot more cautious, especially about cases like this that are involving minors and involving abuse, because I recognize that it is a real thing, but I also recognize that, Brother Polite, whether you agree with him or you don't agree with him, he represents a certain stream of thought. He could be threatening to certain people. I know he speaks very positively about the black community, about black women. And so it's like, there's just too much at stake here for me to just generally say, oh, yes, he did it, or no, he didn't know it. Because there's just too many holes. There's too many things that are just unclear. So I will say, I hope he didn't do it. I really hope he didn't do it. If he did do it, then he should be held accountable, and those implicated should be held accountable. But I'm not going to jump to conclusions until we have more information. I see many black women refuse to call out non-black men on being violent. Some black men don't want to be protected. You said some black men don't want to be protected. Yeah, so I agree. I don't, and again, I think sometimes this is to support a narrative. I don't understand why there's women out there who refuse to address the fact that domestic abuse exists within black and white and Asian and like all communities. And I made this point earlier. If there wasn't an issue with white men, feminism wouldn't have been started. You know what I mean? Like, literally, feminism was started by white women who said, hey, white men, you are oppressing us. You're responsible for the patriarchy. And again, I'm not trying to just demonize out white men, but my point here is that to glorify a particular people group, when the very woman in that people group started a movement that said, you guys are oppressive, it makes literally no sense. It makes no sense anytime you demonize or glorify any particular people group, because it's like people are people, people are individuals, and they have the capacity for good or evil. I don't rock with that kind of stuff. So you're right. Like I said, yes, there are women out there for whatever reason they turn a blind eye to the obvious abuse that may be happening um, to the women that they say that they want to protect, and they highlight instances that support their narrative. So, like I said, in the case of certain divestors, right, where it's like if you are a divestor who literally worships, because there are divestors out there who unfortunately they worship whiteness, whereas as if like, okay, white men can do no wrong. It's like, okay, well, you obviously don't have friends. You don't have white friends because if you talk to them, just like, no, like they can do wrong. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, that's bad. But I'm also not going to sit here and act like it isn't. Abuse does happen in the black community, but that's my whole point. Abuse happens in all communities, and if you are a broken person, if you are a broken individual, you may find yourself in a broken relationship, and sometimes that can have nothing to do with the person of the color, skin, or the ethnicity. That can just be who you are personally choosing. Since people don't understand the history of the term wife beater as a T-shirt, white males beating on their wives. Fair. Yeah, there's a history to this stuff. So anyways, this is what I want to address. Again, I wanted to address the fact that while there is a narrative out there that says black men don't protect the black woman, here I highlighted 3 different stories where black men actually did protect black women, and every last one of those black men were protected were harmed. They were harmed in the process of trying to protect these women. So what does that mean? That means that it is going on. It means that, again, there are men out there, there are good black men in the black community who are actually trying to protect their families, who are actually trying to do good. Unfortunately, we don't hear about that. You know, I've had some commenters say we don't hear about it because it's just not as popular. It doesn't support a particular narrative. It doesn't get as many likes. I don't know. I don't really know why we don't hear about the positive stories, but yeah, I'm here to say, hey, they exist. You know, they do exist, and it's unfortunate that we don't hear enough about it. But don't ever let anybody tell you that this all men in the black community are not protecting black women. That's just strictly false, and I won't stand for it. I think it's false. I think it's wrong. And I'm like, unless I actually see statistical data that shows that by and large, there is a large percentage of black men who have decided and said, we are no longer going to protect these women, and we are going to choose to abuse them. Unless I see statistical and sociological data to support that, then it's just narrative at this point. And that's not helpful. So anyways, those of you who have hopped on, thank you. Please get the likes up, tag anybody on this particular video that you think may find it helpful. For those of you who've hopped on, I had just highlighted 3 different men who were protecting black women and got harmed in the process. We also talked about earlier a situation where it was a white man who abused his black woman and no one talked about it. So again, that goes back to the point where for whatever reason in the YouTube space, we are, turning a blind eye to certain stories and highlighting the others. And I don't think that's fair. I think people need to know that as a woman in particular, if you were a woman, you can find good and bad in all communities. So don't ever let anyone tell you, especially as a black woman, that all black men are trash, because that's a lie. Also, don't let anyone tell you that all white men are going to naturally treat black women better, because that's also a lie. If you have self-hate, or if you have your own mental issues, or if you have low self-esteem, whatever it may be, if you don't value yourself individually, then you're generally going to pick men who don't value you also. And I think instead of us women getting along, or just talking to ourselves and painting this picture that says the issue is all the men, the issue is either the black men, therefore go to the white man, or instead of putting all these issues on people outside of yourself, sometimes we just have to take accountability. And what I see so often, again, when I don't hear stories like this being highlighted, I don't hear the good within the community being highlighted, it shows me that there is a narrative being pushed. And I don't necessarily know why. It doesn't make sense to me. But I don't like supporting I don't like supporting lies, and I don't like when people are demonized, especially within the community. So those are my thoughts on the matter. Those are my thoughts on the matter. I'd love to hear from you if you guys have any other things to say or any other particular things to let me know. I'd love to hear from you. You can leave your comments in the comment section below. I also will leave you with this. Do you guys know of good stories? Do you hear of stories where black men in particular are going out and they are protecting their family and they have put their life on the line or they are doing heroic things and they go unnoticed? If so, let me know. I'd love to hear those stories. I'd love to highlight them. I'd love to talk about them, because I think it's important that we remember that people are people. Black men are people. They're not demons, although sometimes they are portrayed as such in the Black YouTube space. I don't know why, but they are. They're not demons. They're human beings. So I'd like to hear those positive stories. I'd like to hear stories in general of families doing good, constructive things, because we just don't hear enough of that. I hear Dirty Trick. I highly doubt white men are going to protect black women. And then it says, ignoring crime stats to promote propaganda is a problem. You are part of the problem as well. Fair. Why am I a part of the problem? Um, so I called the cops on many white men for harassment. Police. It says, I called cops on many white men for harassment and police came right away. Yeah. So, I mean, like I said before, trying to demonize really any um trying to demonize any particular people group, I think it's silly. I think we should start to look at different stats, and not. I'm not saying don't go to, like, Joe Blow's blog and look at his stats, because like I could make up a stats page right now that's going to fit my narrative. I'm talking like actual. We want to actually look at the method that was taken, like make sure it's actually it's coming from good resources, because not all resources are created equal. And there are certain resources out there that, again, are used to push a narrative. Like, I'm not going to go to www.whitesupremacy.com and try to find stats about black people. Like, that'd be a bad idea. So I'm just using it as an example. What is your email? You could actually find my email on my About page on my YouTube. I have it listed there. Um, so yeah. So I hear almost 900 black women. So I'm hearing almost 900 black women and children have been killed by black men this year alone, and we aren't even done yet. So again, I'd like to see stats. I'd like to see stats around that, and then I'd also like to see the stats compared to other groups of people. Because what I'm not saying is every life matters. Every life matters. Every girl and boy matters. Black community, white community, Asian community. So I want to see that. What I don't like so often is that sometimes we just take these stats out of a vacuum. And if you take stats, like, for example, let's say it is 900 black women and children who have been killed by black men. Okay, but with respect to what? If it's 900 black women and children that have been killed, but it's 9,000 white men or white children that have been killed, it's like you can't just take these stats out of a vacuum, because if you do that, then oftentimes they're misapplied. And that's what I do see. I see stats just randomly taken out of a vacuum, and they're not compared to the population. They're not compared to, okay, what's happening around other people groups, and so it can be used again to paint a particular narrative. And again, that's from, like, okay, that's bad methodology. Whenever we're applying these stats, we want to make sure that they are actually being applied correctly, or else they are just there to paint a picture that can be true or cannot be true. So yeah, so those are some of my thoughts. Again, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for those of you who have hopped on. I also appreciate you for the super chats. Again, if you like this channel, if you want to see more content like this, if you want to have more conversations, and if you want to just support what I'm doing, you can find me on Venmo and Cash App, Shay Sade. I appreciate all of you guys for hopping on, and we'll talk later. Bye.